So call the meeting to order, please, and stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
All board members present, along with the principals, Superintendent Winter, and Ms. Costa.
Motion for adoption of the agenda.
So
And a second.
I'll second it.
Additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item 5, communications recognition, open forum report.
We had some discussion on notification to parents for different issues, how that works, how fast it goes out. Had some questions and concerns about that. Also talked about concerns about student identification, talked about the Kelsby court case, and had some discussion about the listening sessions.
Anything else?
Nope.
Moving on to item 6, board committees. First would be transportation. Maybe Mark.
Well, I think we had another good meeting with the bus contractors. A lot of discussion as far as minimum, maximum days that they want to be covered at 100% versus the 40-60. We're still negotiating a lot of that. So hopefully one more meeting and we'll be done.
All agree. Moving on to Stearns County Collaborative.
Pretty standard meeting, we went over financials. Probably the biggest part of the meeting was the council, which is the superintendents and part of Stearns County. They also meet outside of when the board meets. So we decided to up the money allotted for projects every year by $100,000, just because the cost of everything is going up. And then the special projects, I think, got a bump of 15,000. You weren't there, Greg, do you remember?
I don't.
No, okay. So that was the biggest thing. So that money goes for mental health services and special projects for all of the districts. But I can't say exactly how the money, it's state money,
It's
state money given to the county.
no, it's what's it called again?
I couldn't hear her.
The county, we get it by the social workers, they jot down a lot. What's it called? Where they jot down time of where they're engaged in something.
Oh, yeah.
Time and it's not time and effort.
Time,
I'm sorry, I can't think of it off.
Yep.
I only get it like 3 times a year. They don't know. They very rarely do it. So
It's-
yes, basically, I have to verify that.
people are identified within your district, and they have to identify at certain times when they're doing something, and they turn that information to the county, and the county turns it in and they get federal dollars for that.
Federal dollars.
Time and effort or something like that.
Random time moment.
Random moments.
Random moments, that's what it's called.
Random time moments.
That's what it's called.
Random moments. Because they get sent out randomly. And then the social workers, whoever is designated in your districts, have to respond to them, but it's random.
We receive them too. Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, what are you doing right now? It's like,
So the more responses, the more money,
that's how they do it.
more funds,
It's like you're either working with a student, you're
making sure you're engaged, I
yada,
guess.
yada, yada.
It was 10 minutes long, the whole meeting, I think, so. It started 20 minutes late because we couldn't get quorum, and then it was 10 minutes long. By the time we got quorum.
PTA,
PTA is this Wednesday, we had to postpone, so we have not yet met
since last week.
And professional development meeting.
Elementary and middle school, high school, all had meetings, 2 separate meetings. They've kind of set up their, the first 2 workshops or in-services that they've got. They're doing, elementary is doing, they're working on handwriting, a half a day on that, a half a day on science standards, looking at curriculum. And then the next time they're gonna work on math books, math curriculum. Secondary is doing, book, it's on trauma, and they'll do it in 4 sessions. They're gonna read it and then work on it in 4 sessions. Paras are gonna do the same thing, only in 2 sessions, so they'd be longer sessions. They're gonna work on that. And then on November 4th, there's a Handle with Care training done by Jordan Welly, and that will be paras and teachers. And that's about as far as they are.
C.
Yeah, so I was able to go to my first C meeting, which was the general membership meeting, and I found it very interesting. It's kind of interesting to find out what they're about, since it was my first meeting there. And found, and maybe all of you know this, but because I didn't, I'll let you know that just their basic, they maintain a presence at the state capitol to represent the interest of member schools. And we're one of those. There are 54 districts in Minnesota that belong to C. And C schools have like a lower than average state funding and like less school levy revenue. So C seeks to put pressure on the capital to work against the gaps that are there for the students in the C districts. But Peter Leatherman presented research, and he really said he's never seen things in such a flux. He said the research was from August, but he thought maybe it was already outdated. But different things changing. The research is going to be available on their website, but it's not up there yet that I could see. But we're able to eventually access that, and I can get that out to you at that point. But he just spoke of the quicksand of public opinion and about how people are just groping for answers. So he'd present one piece of something that seemed to contradict another sometimes. For instance, he spoke of the percentage of people who wanted strict gun control laws, but a lot of those same people are thinking that teachers should carry guns. So he just said it seems like people are groping for answers in the state. But overall, I found his research very interesting, especially since it's local and it's current. If you are interested in seeing their legislative platform for 2023, I have that too.
So is C paying for that?
I think so.
Morris Leatherman, they do that as a complimentary thing towards C. That's their kind of marketing thing that they do. If you remember in past years, they have a new person, Ken Springer, who replaced the other lady who worked with, or the other assistant that worked with Brad. And she was new. She didn't get the opportunity to send that survey out. If you recall, I make notes on that survey when we get a paper copy of it, and I share it out with the district. What it is, it's an overall kind of taking a look at which way the wind is blowing in America or in Minnesota politics and how it's going to affect the upcoming legislative session. And Ms. Clausen is absolutely right. Their analysis of everybody's just grasping for something to answer their questions right now. And certainly with every seat in the legislature, both Senate and House, and the governor's seat up for race, it's going to be an interesting season. It's going to be an interesting election. And even more importantly, it's going to be a very interesting legislative session coming up. There was a lot of discussion on what did and didn't get done last year. If you recall, they had a $9.25 billion surplus last year. They had that even after they spent $1.5 billion on some late things they finally agreed with. The current estimates right now with the funding that's coming into the state is by the time the legislative session starts, they'll have about a $12 billion surplus. Because they didn't do anything last year. That's the latest estimate. Who knows what's going to happen if that's going to get down. Certainly, we were having that presentation as the stock market was tanking. That has an impact on it. And as Ms. Clausen said, that was done previous to some pretty big events that have been occurring lately. So things have probably already changed since then. A pretty good insight, though, to kind of a wetter vein of Minnesota where things are going. When that presentation does become available, I'll share it with the board.
Questions for Becky? Moving on to administrative reports, Mr. Duckett.
Yes. Board members. Obviously, just finished up homecoming. I think that went pretty well. Gals, what do you think? It went pretty good, is what I thought. So we're gonna start our focus on the second half of the first quarter, because that's where we're at now. I want to thank Ms. Engelmeyer and our student council for their creativity during the week and their efforts to make the week as memorable as it was. Seniors had their class photo Thursday. It's always enjoyable for them to start to realize this is their last year. So when they get their photo on the hill, it's always kind of fun for them. We've got MEA coming, a couple of things coming up here, the 20th and 21st, no school, and then there's an in-service on the 24th of October. So kids actually have a longer break than normal. And then finally, we have an upcoming guest speaker. His name is Brad Hurtig, and his message is really about facing challenges, paradigm shifts, that type of thing. Brad was, or is, he's an amputee, double hand amputee, and his message is just that, overcoming challenges and fears and how to deal with what you dealt with, that type of thing. So I want to thank Alan Wheeling and Harvest Church for helping make this possible. And we will have presentations for elementary kids, middle school kids, and high school kids that particular day. So looking forward to that. Any questions for me? Thanks.
Good evening. I was just going to update you guys on that. I asked Mr. Glazner for an update, and I know some of you on the board are involved as well, but as of right now, Food for That is serving about 75 elementary kids, 30 middle school and high school, and about 15 ALC students in our district. Kind of concerning with the cost of food prices. Most of the money has been raised for this year, but previously they tried to keep each bag under $5, and now with the rise in food costs, that's getting over that. But the fundraising has been well with donations and the big event from Family Feeds last year. So, and then local organization and school groups are still packing bags on a monthly basis. So that's been going well.
Remind me, Mr. Anderson, that's Fridays it goes out? A week.
Yes, they try to go out in a short week. They'll go out before the weekend as well. So it all depends on the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's intended for the weekend.
And the need for that is increasing, not only because food costs are going up, but also students are paying for school meals now. So that part isn't free. So we see the increase in that, the need for that. Middle School Student Council is planning monthly activities. October, they have a couple of things going. They're going to do a Be Kind campaign, and then they're going to do kind of like a March Madness, but they're going to do a candy bar madness bracket to get students involved, to get feedback from students about certain things. So they're going to do a candy bar bracket, and they have prizes and stuff that they're going to hand out during that piece. We are continuing with letters in the middle school for phonics training for our middle school teachers. They were starting their second year of that, and we're excited because we've had a great start, like Mr. Duncan has said. The homecoming week went great, and close to midway through first quarter, so it's been going well.
Good evening. The elementary has had a great start to a great first month. We're now into our 5th week. This week, we just started our grade level meetings, reviewing student progress and talking about students' growth and making adjustments accordingly. Our elementary data retreats, where we review our fall data and all our testing data, will be October 11th and October 13th. And the 3rd graders are enjoying, Freddie has been started coming to school, so they're reading with him. And we're looking forward to being able to do that program. We definitely saw an increase in their reading achievement last year with that. And we too are continuing with our letters training. And we have a round of first year teachers and then a round of second year that are in it. So we have teachers participating from grades K through 3.
Mr. Winter.
First thing, just to kind of comment on it, and I'll echo some of the things that have already been said. Our enrollment is up by 10 students this year. This is comparing this time this year to last time last year. Slow growth is always good, and I hope that slow growth continues. And I know there was a few dips in the enrollment before I came here. Since then, certainly with the pandemic, the enrollment's kind of steadily grown. I think it shows a lot of confidence in our parents and our community to continue to send their students to our school, even in light of all the things that happened during the pandemic. So we are aware that there may be a few students out there that are not attending school, and working with Ms. Barrett and Ms. Munoz, excuse me, they'll be reaching out to those parents to see what we can do to get those students in our school. So we don't know how many of them, but there are a few that out there that aren't attending school right now. Just to echo those comments before I get to the school year, I want to thank everyone who turned out for the listening sessions last week. Very well attended. For the board members that were there, received a lot of great information, which we're going to talk about later on tonight. And also just, once again, great start to the school year. I've got my first admit team meeting tomorrow with all the department heads to talk about everything that went on. And, you know, there's always going to be a few hiccups here and there, but those things do not happen by accident. With the principals that are here tonight, along with the admit team, working really hard to plan for the beginning of the year. And certainly in light of coming out of the pandemic, everybody wanted this to be a normal year, off to a good start. So I would like to think that we were able to do that this year.
Any questions for any of the administrators? Moving on to item 8, the non-action items, first of which will be the ESSER budget presentation.
It's gonna work. Very confident.
All right. I'm just gonna give you guys, it looks a little intimidating, but don't worry, it's not that hard to understand, but just want to give you a quick rundown of you hear us talk about the ESSER budget all the time, ESSER money. These are all of the different pots of money involved with ESSER and how we've been spending them. First, just let you, the process of getting these funds is we're notified obviously by MDE, and then we have to go into SERVS, which is our reporting program for all of the federal funds we receive. So first, Mr. Winter actually has to go in there and accept the funds. And then there's usually an application involved, and I sit down with Mr. Winter and we go over that and fill that out to the best of our knowledge. Later in some of the other rounds of money, we had to pull in help from the admin team. I create a budget, or once the application is approved, I go in, I create a budget, MD has to approve the budget, and then we go on spending like normal. And then at the end of the year or throughout the year, I go in and I request the money back. So, and we have to revised to actuals, but it all has to line up with what I budgeted and what is in our application. So this was the first round of money. This was the CARES funding, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. So first there was ESSER 1. There's a large pot of money. ESSER 1 was 90% of that. ESSER 1, 9.5 was a smaller portion, and then Gear 1 was the third part of that group of funding. I know them by fin codes, is how my brain works. So if you hear me saying fin 151, that's just referring to the ESSER. But so that first round of money was mainly, when we got that was mainly to get us back on track, to get everything that we needed in order to open our schools again to everybody coming back after we've been out of school since March of 2020. They gave us set guidelines on what to use and what we could buy, and a large portion of this funding was required to buy, get technology into the homes of our families. We luckily already had a lot of, we're a one-to-one district, so we had Chromebooks already. However, a big portion of this was spent on hotspots to get internet into every home that needed it. Oh, also these funds right here, these 3 funds, we did have to allocate a small portion to our non-public schools. And the way we figured that out was exactly how we do all of the figuring for our non-public schools for title money also. So there's forms that we got that all figured out, and a portion of this money did have to go to the non-publics. Another fund, this was my favorite one out of CARES, was fin 154. In September, we were notified of this money, and October, our application was approved, and we had to spend it all and receive everything by December 31st of 2020. So we had 3 months to spend all of this money. And I think we did a great job getting together with every member of this district had an input on how we spent that money. So we made sure that we didn't want to spend frivolously, so we quickly I think we did a great job on making sure we did spend all of that money very well, very fiscally responsibly. ESSER 2, this is the second round of money that we got. This fin 155, this was also pretty lenient in how we could use it. We knew that we wanted to get some more technology into the school, different aspects of it, so we were able to sit down with Steve Schulzenberg and really address some of the technology issues that was lacking in the school, and use this funding for that.
An example.
I will at the end.
Perfect.
ARP funding, this was American Rescue Plan. This is basically what we're spending right now. This is like the last round of money, not quite the last round. ESSER 3, 90%, fin 160, that was our largest amount of money that we received. That's a pretty broad spectrum on how we can spend our money. However, you go down to fin 161, which is $306,000, and that was again very specific. Once we hit ESSER 3, the applications became, instead of 2 pages, they became 5, 6, 7 pages. They came a lot more in depth. We had to really sit down at this point with teachers and with admin principals and find out how can we spend this money. We had to hit very specific items from, there's a state priority list for learning that we had to hit all of these areas in order to get this funding. That money is used, the fin 161, however, is more, it's for out of school time. It's not during the school day. So this is a little tougher for us to spend because we were able to keep our elementary kids in school all year last year, or during the pandemic. So we didn't have to offer very many extra out-of-school time programs.
For catch-up.
For catch-up, yeah. Next is FIN 159 for our homeless families. We do have some homeless families, so we were able to tap into that. The majority of that money is just going for general supplies to help students in need. And then the learning loss, FIN 169, that one we are still working on how to spend. But that again is to address learning loss. So some of these are getting more difficult for us to spend because of the fact that we did such a great job of keeping the kids in school and not disrupting their learning as best as we could. So this again is something that they want you to use out of school. The COVID testing program, that was FIN 170. We received $72,000. That was not money given to us to buy COVID tests. That money we used to pay our nurse who was working ridiculous hours, crazy, doing COVID tracing, tracking. It was to pay the translators that helped her make all those phone calls. Anybody basically that was involved with any of the COVID testing, sitting with students and going through that whole process, calling MDH, trace, just all of that stuff. So that money was spent on the nurse and anybody that assisted her. State fiscal recovery funds. This was what the preschool for 4 to 5-year-olds. Stacy did run a program in last summer and this past summer. So she's run it 2 summers in a row. This was a little different. They just gave us, we told them how much we thought we would spend and they gave us the money right away. However, we have not spent all of that money. So we will be sending money back to the government, to MDE. But we projected to serve as many students as we could. Pandemic enrollment loss, that deals with the declining enrollment that happened once COVID hit and people stopped coming, they were homeschooling. So that was to address the fact that we did lose some students because of that. And then the summer academic enrichment and mental health, that's actually money given to us out of the governor's discretionary funds. And that is strictly to be used for summer programs, or again, out of school programs, mainly in the summer though. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you a little bit how we spent all this money. The CARES money, again, we spent all of that. That's all gone. A lot of it went to staffing, and like I had said already, the hotspots, supplies, things for our Chromebooks, laptops. You can read. We bought a new van because we were using all of our vans to feed our kids because we had to deliver meals all the time. Meals and curriculum when the kids were out. And then also we used it for mitigation items such as the plexiglass, all the masks, gloves, cleaning supplies. We did buy new equipment for our custodians, such as scrubbers, new vacuums, things like that to make it more efficient and to do a better job in the building. The coronavirus response and relief supplemental appropriations. This was ESSER 2, and we have spent all of this, and the majority of this went to, like, this was what I was talking about, the technology that we sat with Steve. We got a bunch of smart TVs, a lot of the streaming services that we used for our kids while we were distance learning. The microphone systems, the red cats that the teachers can have in their class. So the microphone that amplifies their voice. Early childhood playground and fenced in area. We used ESSER 2 money for that. And we upgraded all of the cabling and so that it would work better. We had got a new phone system and we had to go from a Cat 4 to a Cat 5 or something like that. So we did a big cabling project to coincide with our phone system that we got. And this part, this ARP and SFRF funding is what we are currently still using. Like I said, we ran the summer preschool program last summer and this summer. Like I said, I think we got about $43,000 for that, but we only spent about $22,000. So we'll see if they extend it, if we can use it again in June of next year. We definitely will. That 160, Fin 160 is the ESSER 3, the really big pot. That's how we're paying for our Hispanic success coach and for our learning interventionists that we have in the secondary school. And then the COVID testing budget, like I had said earlier, was for the nurse. I think that's it. That's it.
Aaron, I got a question. You talked about MiFis. I remember we had ordered a bunch of MiFis for those families that had a distance learn. Have we gotten them back, and are we now unsubscribing to those MiFis?
Yep, we had, oh my gosh, I can't even remember how many had. We had over 50, I think. And I think we do still have 4 active, just in case. But everything else has already been, disconnected and turned off. And turned in, I think we sold some back to AT&T or Verizon, whichever one we did. So, yep.
Any more questions for her? Thank you.
But as admin team, do you have a plan for spending the rest, or are we asking for it?
Still working on it.
Well, yes, it is budgeted already. Most of it this year is staffing. We're already working on like the curriculum part of it. We've spent a lot of the portions already. The rest, most of the remaining is probably going to be staffing.
So there is a plan.
Yes.
You can spend it through the school year.
Yep, we have until September of 2024
Oh, okay.
to draw it down and be like done with it.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Next non-action item is MCA report scores.
Rob's got to follow her.
I know.
There we go.
Okay, just gonna give you an MCA data update from last spring. So these would all be scores from last spring. Now, if you go online and you try to find data from 2020, we didn't take MCAs because that's when we shut down. 21, we did take MCA tests. The students did, but you won't find any data anywhere online publicly for that data. That they wanted that to be internal purposes only. And then this is the first year. So school designations as far as need support, need improvement, all of that stuff does not involve those 2 years. Well, the 1 year we didn't even take it does not involve 21 data as well. So I'm just gonna go through typically what I would show you guys. The first one is our trend. So again, you won't see this anywhere online, and we didn't. That was when we shut down for the pandemic. So you can see where we're going. Again, the colors represent the same students. I get asked all the time, do you feel the pandemic academically affected our students? If I had to say between math and reading, it affected math much more than reading. And a lot of school districts are very similar.
So tell us what these percentages are.
So this is the percent of students meeting on the MCA math. This is the MCA math test. So remember, in grades 3 through 5, every student represents anywhere from 1.25% to 1.5%, because of the amount of students that we have.
So this was taken last, like 2022,
Yep.
last spring.
So this would have been last, we mainly took them in April, the beginning of May. April to the beginning of May.
So when it says sixth graders, that's last year's sixth graders.
This would be this year's 7th graders, you are correct.
So is there usually a decline between 5th and 6th grade?
So keep this picture in your head, and then when I show you the state percentages, you'll drastically see those drop. The one thing that is very difficult, you can't compare 5th to 6th because they're testing completely different things. Does that make sense? Completely different set of standards. They're based on the state standards. I can't say that 6th grade is being tested everything 5th grade is and then some. You can't say that. If that makes sense.
Because there is a huge drop.
And you will see a huge drop in the state as well in between 5 and 6 and 6 and 7, because what happens is you have your elementary grades, and those elementary grades spend anywhere between 90 to 110 minutes on math and reading. Now they're going down to a secondary setting where it's maybe 45 minutes, 49 minutes. Which is why in 6th grade, we spend a little bit of extra time there. Every student does, to try to get to even out that gap, and so it's not so drastic.
So with the shorter time, Robbie, do you have kids not finishing? No, they always get to finish.
No, they finish, but all I'm saying is every day in the elementary, kids spend anywhere between 90 and 110 minutes in reading, and
Right.
very similar in math. Secondary, again, remember, they're 49 minutes in math, 49 minutes in English.
It's about half as much time.
Yes.
Because not testing, they're
Yes.
just
Yep.
Correct.
learning.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And again, this will make more sense to you on my last slide when you see, like, you might be looking at this and say, this is really low. It is low, but that's the position the state has put us in when they designed the test, and you'll see how the whole state does overall. Does that make sense?
Well, it definitely flows better.
Reading.
Again, reading, the skills are very similar from 3rd grade to 10th grade because it's reading skills. Does that make sense? Where math can be very different skills from algebra to geometry. Yes, where this is why a lot of school districts will say the pandemic did not hurt reading skills as much as it hurt math skills. Because the math skills, you directly have to have someone there instructing you on the new skill, where reading, some of those are pre-developed. And then science is a whole nother thing. You'll see science scores through the state are significantly dropped off. The state adopted new science, is in the process of adopting new science standards. They're phasing it in, which is why in a couple of years we'll have the MCA, the 4th version of our MCAs, to adopt to the new standards. So the state is leaving the old test until we're all phased in with the science standards.
So you can just throw it away. The results
So
don't represent the
the
curriculum?
what the kids are tested on doesn't necessarily reflect what they're supposed to be learning in the classroom. That's the difficulties. Because if you remember back in 2007, math went through a huge standards change where we had to teach Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Reading went through a huge standards change in 11, I think. Now science is going through that process where this is very significant change. Where every 4 years, they change the standards. This was the last one to go through the major change. Now math is doing it again, reading is doing it again, but there are very minimal changes with the standards. So this is the last one that I was going to show you. So you can see what the state average is compared to how we're doing. If we're above the state average, I put it in green and below is in red. So you can see how the state compares. So you can see the state definitely does drop off from 3rd grade to 11th grade in math. Yep.
Especially in reading.
So now what? So what we're going to do with all of this stuff is we're going to get back to restarting our MCA data retreats with teachers again. And when we say MCA data retreats, that's not the same data retreats that Terrell talked about today. Terrell, Ms. Pearson, and the elementary teachers are using benchmark data to make individual decisions for students. We're going to use MCA data to directly look at our curriculum and instruction. So we know these are the things that are being tested. I can pull reports of individual standards that the students did poorly on. So we're going to see where we teach them, if we do teach them, and why we think our students are doing poorly on them. Whether is it a timing piece? Is it a resource piece? So hopefully we can get back into that depending on subs, and then we'll start setting some realistic goals with teachers as we have done in the past as well.
Can you break that down to individual grade levels?
Yes, I get that data specifically by grade level. We don't get that data specifically by student, grade level only.
So it'll highlight the areas that are underachieved, or all areas, so you can see the ones you're doing really well in, as well as
Yes.
poor ones.
Yep.
Is it broken down to classroom?
In our building, it is because that teacher teaches that grade level. Does that make sense?
But if you have 3 teachers,
You are
teaching
correct.
that-
Not in elementary. Nope. So that's why we work on it. When we do data retreats, I will work with 3rd grade as a whole, 4th grade as a whole, 5th grade as a whole, elementary, math. Math, reading, science, special ed, EL. Yep. Now, I don't know where the states is going with MCA tests. Herman mentioned earlier to me, he used to get this big, long publicity email saying all public data is going to release at this time and this date. And that's not the case anymore. The state's on a big whole child push right now, MTSS going through new process, Compass and stuff. So I don't know where we're going with MCAs and the future of MCAs. I don't think they're going to go away, but I know the emphasis that they're going to put on them, as you maybe have heard as well, definitely isn't near as what it used to be. Again, like I said, now we're going to focus on it with teachers, look at our curriculum, look at our instruction, and find the holes. And make adjustments from there.
Because at one time they had threatened or said funding could be based off of MCAs.
So there still are designations that you can
Okay.
be. You can be a needs improvement school. I don't remember. There's 4 categories. We're not in any of those. It's based off of 3 years of data based off of, there's a threshold put out there by the bottom 5% of Title I schools. And that threshold-
The key there is Title I schools. Not all districts are title schools.
Yeah.
So there were some districts that were designated this year as need improvement.
And that can be anywhere from MCA data to graduation to attendance. All of that is part of those designations that you can qualify for. And we can qualify for any of those designations based on any of our student population. They don't look at the school as a whole, they look at each
That's right.
individual student group separately.
This is an overly broad spectrum question, but how can the board help get more green and less red?
So specifically, I think getting back to having time for teachers to go back to their curriculum, go back to their instruction, and have time to look at the data and now look at my curriculum and see if the data is matching up with what I'm teaching.
And when does that happen?
So I will be sitting down with Jody and finding time, hopefully if we can get subs, but it's best to do as a whole math department. Does that make sense? I prefer to do it as in groups because then we're getting together. We're not only talking grade level, then we're talking vertically too. So then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 and 12th grade teachers can all talk to each other. Say, I left off here. You need to be picking up here. We could talk whole system during that piece. So this is why this hasn't happened for a couple of years, because it wouldn't even have gotten close with substitutes. We're getting back to possibly having it happen, and I know Terrell is getting subs for her data retreats, so I will work with Jody to see if we have enough subs to hopefully perform this.
Oh, is it a whole day?
Yeah, I went to a half a day where we used to do a whole day.
Okay.
But we like to use the same subs and we switch groups
Sure. Okay.
halfway through the day. Last year I had this in place for teachers to do, but it would have been on their own until their own time where they didn't get compensated for it. But it wasn't me driving what they were learning. They were following a flow sheet, filling out information, and it wasn't them talking to their colleagues either.
So this is kind of the only time the whole math department would get together and vertically see, like when they see what you're reporting, so 10th grade, maybe that 10th grade teacher says, oh, I see that when I'm teaching this, they were supposed to learn that in 9th grade and usually they don't know it. Do those types of things happen or?
That happened when we did our curriculum maps back when I was teaching math. We had time through the summer to sit down and go through all the standards and see who's teaching what and lay them all out, who's responsible for what. That deep of a dive doesn't happen until we get to this.
Until you get back to this, okay.
So ideally, it would happen on a staff development day because you wouldn't need subs, except that you could only go through in one day 2 departments.
I couldn't be at all of them and facilitate them.
Right.
And the other piece is I don't want everybody else watering down. We could do it all staff wise,
No.
but it becomes too much for some staff members.
Right.
And some departments. Yep.
So if you did just math,
Yep.
like say you would take half a day and do all math,
Mhm.
then the rest of the middle school, high school would have to have something else in staff development.
Yep.
Then you could flip in the afternoon and do reading.
Yep.
Ideally, that would be the way to do it because subs are hard.
They are hard.
But then
I like to do them in October.
Right.
Because it's early enough in the school year that if some adjustments, every year adjustments are big.
Right.
we're making adjustments no matter what the data says. We're making adjustments based on what is low in the data. And every year something comes up low, so we're making adjustments. I like to do it early so those adjustments still can be made. And it gives time for teachers to reflect on the upcoming, possibly new standards, upcoming change, what our curriculum needs to change rather than all the way throughout the year.
So maybe that October, the one at the end of October and the beginning of November, that's only half the idea. Should be used for that rather than what staff development was setting up?
Probably
Well,
not, 'cause you have too much
our
to go through.
October day is a full day.
Right,
And the problem is if I pull out these people, then they're missing whatever they're doing too.
right, so you have
Yeah.
to flip it,
Yeah.
kind of, it would be
It's
kind of a
Yeah.
hassle, but ideally, it would
Yeah.
work very good. You would like to be able to pull everybody
Absolutely.
in on.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have enough subs, then you break it down by, I do 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math, and then I do.
And I've done that. Well, I've done that on the side with departments that wanted more than that half day allotted. So,
just worry
Sure,
about
they'll
the
make it
enough
work.
subs.
yes. Yep. Other questions?
It seems like it's all coming down to you, is that
I-
the limiting factor is the teacher time
Yeah.
and the subs, but the other limiting factor is it seems like it's a one-man show.
This was something that I was very passionate about. When I get to do this again, this is something I really enjoy, sitting down and having those conversations with the teachers. First of all, I lived this as a teacher, so it's easy for me to have the conversations with teachers, and to have a realistic look at what we're doing versus how our kids are supposed to be performing. So there are days where I'm pulled out, but there are days that I enjoy to have those conversations with teachers. And I think the teachers really enjoy that they have someone that's lived it to be there and talk to them about it.
So how many days of your time will this take to get through?
Well,
You do elementary also, or just Terrell?
so typically I do the
You do too,
elementary as
okay.
well. But the elementary, again, is, remember, it's only 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
Oh,
So
sure.
there's 3, and we typically get it done in a day.
Okay.
We usually start them at 7:30, do each one of them 2 to 3 hours, and then we're done at 3:30 or 4.
Okay. That's a few less teachers.
Yep.
3 to 4 per grade.
And then we like to involve the EL, we like to involve the special ed teachers for that stuff. And then in the elementary, we don't always focus on their grade level, we focus on the grade level before them and the grade level after them as well, to see where we're performing at, to see if we need to help out below, help out above. So.
Thanks.
Any questions? Do you feel comfortable moving forward? Do you have a plan?
I
It's a little disheartening seeing all this red.
Yep.
Because usually in the past, prior to COVID, we tend to be a little more in the green area. It seemed like.
Yeah, sometimes
Nah.
not.
Numbers for numbers, our red is the same as it was before COVID.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I would say our scores overall, like percentages wise, on the math part, were usually higher, but they drastically reduced for the state. Like I track the state from year to year too. The math scores across the state dropped 3 to 5%. And when you talk about 600,000 to 700,000 students are taking that test, that drop, I mean, that's a lot of kids. 3 to 5% is a lot of kids.
I just don't remember our math being that low prior to COVID.
You were correct. It wasn't. No.
Our reading, we were always a little
Yep.
bit on the lower
Yep.
side, but our math, were typically hanging pretty good.
Yep.
And I see a lot of red in math this time around.
It wasn't a lot. I would say
A lot
our
more than normal.
Yep, I would say our 6th grade math is usually low because of our drastic change from elementary to middle school.
But what about the state?
Yeah, so the state,
I mean, the state's transitioning from high school to middle school, to high school as well.
But
Whether it's 6, 7, or 7, 8, wherever that.
yeah, but some districts transition in 5th grade.
Correct.
Yeah, some districts might not, might not have a significant transition throughout at all. Because they might departmentalize it starting in 3rd grade.
Well, and our goal is the end,
And-
right?
And standards, like standards from here to there drastically could change. I can tell you, I used to teach this. This is all algebra.
Yeah.
Where this, when you start talking surface area, volume, now algebra, now numbers and operations, rational, irrational, their concept as math is a lot more broad than I am here.
True.
But I'm still looking at state
Yep.
versus Melrose.
Yep.
And everybody's gonna go through that
Yep,
transition.
absolutely.
So it's gonna hit at some point. It just seems like it hitting us worse. Like I said, I think our math has always been a lot better. Apparently, we've had some slippage from COVID.
Oh, math drastically has.
And I get what
Yeah.
you're saying, that face to face, but I also think as a school district, we probably had more face to face time with our teachers than other districts.
Sure. Yep. Well, so if I go back to here, you can see our 6th grade math, 5th grade math, you can see that piece for however long you want to say.
So we've had that problem.
But like I said, I mean, the end is our goal, right?
Oh, for sure.
So something's, however it's being taught here or whatever, it's typically working out by 11th grade. Right? Except for right after COVID. So.
Yep.
So hopefully that trend continues. We have some slippage some years. But maybe it could be better if we found the hole there.
And that's what we'll focus on.
But you feel comfortable with the plan going forward.
Very detailed, specific.
That's nice. That's helpful. For
It's
teachers.
a good 3.5 to 4 hours with each department. Is time definitely worth it.
And you've got the availability.
Yeah, which is why last year we didn't have the option to do it during the school day because of subs, which is why we still threw it out there and some staff took available and some staff did not.
And I plan to be at our meetings, and we will have Amy, our curriculum director, there too. I used to sit at those and be part of that with Robbie for the curriculum. So Amy will be there too, to have the curriculum part discussed and, these targeting standards too. So she'll be there to support too.
Yeah, empowering those support people to do those things is important too.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, so she will be involved too.
Yeah, absolutely. She's very familiar with this process.
And that all leads into the world's best workforce.
Yep, and goals,
Interventions and
yep,
goals.
district-wide goals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to non-action item C, 3 new policies. First will be chemical use and abuse, first review.
And you'll see in both of these first 2 policies, one for chemical use and abuse and one for development of programs and dealing with those issues. Most of the changes that have been involved in both these 2 policies, and these were reviewed with Mr. Duffer and Mr. Clausen, was due to the medical cannabinoid that was passed last year in legislative session of how to deal with some of the things that came up because of that. So it's trying to, I'm sorry, I'm medical.
You had me confused for a little.
No,
Gummy bears.
Gummy bears.
those things, the cannabinoid, the legal cannabinoid stuff that came out last spring, that's listed in the future. So these are all policies that are addressing those issues that have been recommended by MSBA. So you'll see a lot of that terminology throughout the controlled substances of legal cannabis that was passed last year by the legislature. And of course, with that was the development of also making sure that schools had in place different supports for those utilizations of, not only those chemicals in that place, but also alcohol, tobacco, and all the other things that are still present.
But on a practical basis, those are still, I mean, those are still illegal for possession
Yes.
and are
Yes.
still illegal for minors.
Yep, and that's what's defined in these policies. It was just making sure that the school is reacting to that.
A lot of changes.
Yes.
We're talking here about the, reporting to an assessment team. Who do they, report to now if they? feel-
Initially go to social workers, and if it continues, they put an assessment team together.
Okay.
We do have some tobacco diversion programs that we have for those type of things, but
Policy committee will went through all of this.
Yep.
Assuming that, we're moving on to, are there questions about policy 417? It seems like 417, 418.
yeah, pretty similar. It's just the 418 focuses more on the drug-free workplace. What happens when you catch students with that? Talks once again about diversion programs with the legal cannabinoids, that non-impacting cannabinoids, edible cannabinoids, all those things are out there. And once again, the purpose of these policies is not to take a look at what the state legislature did or did not do wrong last spring. I'm not going to get on that soapbox, but it's just more schools reacting to what did occur within the legislative session last spring. And once again, updates on other things that deal with not just cannabinoids, but also alcohol, tobacco, those types of things.
Moving on to item for policy 506, school discipline.
This is a rather extensive one I've been working on since last spring with the principals, getting some input on them. What you'll see throughout this policy is that for whatever reason, some schools have gone away from different uses of interventions and violations and consequences with this. MSBA is kind of recommending that as a district policy, that you put some of these things back in place to set expectations among students and make sure that they understand what the disciplinary actions are going to take place if these things do happen. So it's kind of a MSBA's proposal to make sure that you put these things in place to remind students and parents of consequences of discipline in regards to behaviors.
The one that kind of struck me was that if a student is removed from class more than 10 times in a school year, then the district notifies the parents or guardian of.
That's the minimum requirement. We do that before that.
Okay, I was gonna say, do we have to have that in there 10 times? I mean, it's like, really?
Well, that's the minimum requirement, except the principals will notify parents long before that.
That was our talking point at our committee as well.
Mhm.
We even have it underlined.
Yeah. 10 times is too late.
Chairs, we.
Yeah, somebody's.
questions or comments? We'll see these again.
Yes, 2 more times.
Moving on to item 9, consent agenda. A motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Highlights.
Sort of hiring of different positions within community ed. We still have some pairs that are transitioning in and out. Some pairs have moved on. We've got to hire more pairs. And Boonsock, our technology specialist, very sorry to see her leave. If I remember, 12 years she's worked here for the district in different capacities. She's moved on to work with the diocese. Just a lot of things and some paternity leaves and FMLA leaves.
Any questions or comments?
Randy and I are both on this road, Jim. We just sustain.
We don't have it.
Don't have to. It's only open Jim.
If there are no other questions or comments, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as listed, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Moving on to item 10 would be the treasurer's report. A motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So
And a second.
Seconded.
It's
Highlights.
not a lot, just getting off to the start of the school year, everything's looking good so far. Glad to see that we did get, parents are definitely paying for school lunches again. I was a little nervous how that was gonna go over, but that's been going well, so, other than that, no, it looks like we're off to a good start.
Anything further to add? Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the treasurer's report, aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on to item 11, action items. First would be donations and gifts. A motion to approve, or a motion to accept the donations as listed.
So moved.
And a second.
Second. Pretty self-explanatory on there where the money came from, what it went to. Especially the donation for the Land Lakes and backpacks, and we did receive some backpack donations last year, so I think every student that needed a backpack and school supplies this year got them. But also some of the other niceties of our academic or our activities, different soccer warm-ups and swim warm-ups, so certainly thankful all those donors for those as well.
Questions or comments? Roll call.
Beth,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Becky? Yes. Mark?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Lee, yes. Motion approved.
In our appreciation. Swimmers and the soccer players will be looking nice. Item B would be a motion to have the annual open campus day as requested by Mr. Duckett. Motion, please.
So move.
And a second.
Second.
Same things in the past.
Annual.
Straight up.
How many times this year is it again for open campus? 4 times?
One a quarter.
One per quarter.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you. I'll let them know.
Item C would be a motion motion to set a date for the truth in taxation public hearing. Motion, please.
So move. I'll second that.
Annual event, done, time of the December board meeting.
Have to get it done before the end of December, so usually do it at the December board meeting.
It's a week early from the holidays. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on to D, a motion for the annual resolution by the school board to consider proposed property tax levy for the 2022 payable 2023 year.
I so move.
And a second,
Second.
annual bookkeeping.
Annual resolution, and when Ms. Nosk gives her truth and taxation presentation in December, you'll hear more about this.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, same sign. So the next is at E, motion for the Safe School Plan 2022-2023.
So moved.
And a second,
Second.
Safe School Plan has been on our website along with the information received from an open during a regular school board meeting. All schools must have a safe school plan to continue to receive funding for the ESSER grant. Stipulation of the grant.
Stipulation of the grant, and we've talked about it. I have received some input from the public. It is very vague, sets very few requirements of what we need to do. This is what most schools are doing, and I'm hoping we never have to use any of this for the rest of at least my career in education, but it is a stipulation that we have to have it on there. We have to have some type of plan on our website.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item F. The paraprofessional contract. Motion to approve, accept the paraprofessional contract as negotiated for the 2022-23 year and 23-24 year.
So moved.
And a second? Second. Comments from the negotiating committee, questions?
Fairly smooth. Much quicker this time around.
We had some good discussion, good working sessions.
And this has been approved by the,
Yes, they have.
questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on to item 11. A motion regarding the ARIS group. This group provides voluntary benefits to our employees. A motion, please.
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
So this is just to continue using them?
No, this is a new group that's gonna come in, short-term disability, hospital insurance, those type of things. These are different additional benefits that employees can purchase. They are not paid for by the district. We are phasing out Aflac. This group has came in and given us much better numbers for those services that teachers, other staff members, support staff, custodians can purchase for these services.
So if they had Aflac, can they continue with?
Some can continue with it. There are a couple that are going to stick with Aflac, so we're going to allow them to do that. We just need board understanding of it, board approval of it, to move to a different group to offer these services to our teaching staff. And this does not cost the district any money. These are voluntary benefits.
Why is the board approving it?
There's
Can we
new-
bring any provider that can come in and,
You can, and we go out and get bids for it to find which ones, or
Not this, this is just voluntary. I'm not sure this actually needs board approval. They just need, the board needs to recognize it and sign paperwork, so we just put it on the.
we just put it on for board approval.
It must need my signature.
Yep.
Pat's.
Yes,
So we like to know,
it does.
so you all.
That's
know.
why we wanted the whole board to know about it.
Because they're pre-tax benefits, it just need to be discussed and aware. So
All in favor of
Allowing.
allowing this?
but it sounds like we're restricting that.
Or allow it.
We're acknowledging it.
Yep, we're just acknowledging that staff are gonna be able to do it. That's all we're doing.
We're acknowledging.
I don't
Whatever,
I don't think this is the most significant decision we're gonna make. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. 8, this is the one. Good. Motion to approve the FFA trip to Madison, Wisconsin, October 2nd through the 5th.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Ms. Seifert gave Mr. Duckett and myself some paperwork for a trip coming up. Because of the timing of receiving the documentation and the FFA trip, you were not able to meet, but I sent this information out to the trip committee to answer any possible questions they would have. FFA is a pretty standard trip where they go compete, and this is in Madison, Wisconsin. It's coming up here in early October. So to expedite the process, I can send it out to them because I haven't had time, nor has any of the board members had time to meet and talk about these things. So that the trip committee is very well aware of it and have been able to get their questions answered that they have on the trip.
Is that the World Dairy Expo? You know, yeah,
It's
it's
a
something,
national meeting.
something different, but it's something that they wanted to try to get some different exposure to and see it. So, yeah, so she mentioned it, it was like, cool. So,
Just came up quick.
So they've never attended this one before.
not this one, not this piece, this is in Wisconsin, if I recall. So,
Well, this isn't the national.
no, this is a
annual
little
thing that
different,
they've
this is
gone
a
to before.
more,
No.
this is more Dairy Expo, more related to that.
That's the World Dairy.
More, you know, where they go to Indianapolis, that's different, that's more broader spectrum, so.
And that one you have to qualify for, I think, right, the national one?
That's national, that's okay.
If you participate in it, then you can experience it, not just attend.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right.
I think it'll be a good experience for them to see a different angle on things. So
She
it's
requested,
something that she would like to try, and then to see once that she kind of works it into a plan every third year or every other year, that type of thing.
she requested 13 students. It must be upperclassmen.
I believe it's juniors and seniors.
This is a lot more than.
Any more questions? Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the FFA trip? Aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on to item I, motion to approve the German trip June 10th to July 3rd, 2023.
So moved.
And a second?
Same thing, rather received this paperwork rather late in the process. However, Mr. Rinka held upon me and Mr. Duckett to try to get the board to get this approved as soon as possible so that he can start planning for his trip next summer. Takes place June 10th through July 3rd of 2023. And this is much different from the annual German trip that he takes every year. So the information was sent out to the trip committee, offered any questions. That's pretty much the same annual trip that he takes.
He's told us about how the trip went out being going to go for 2 years.
I can tell you all about it. It was great. It takes, Mr. Rink spends a lot of time planning, and can't say enough about it. It's a great experiential learning trip for kids. And they have an opportunity to spend close to 2 weeks, I think, with their host families. And you're kind of forced to learn on the fly sometimes, which is really neat. But it's also done in a setting where the parents and the GAP students that they're working with and that they're with, they can help out with English too, just to make sure. So everybody seemed to really benefit and grow a lot. It was really neat, really neat. I definitely would go back again just from that standpoint of you learn so much, you take so much in, and I think one thing that trip in 10 days, I think of the travel component. I don't think you could take a 3-week trip and see that much that we saw in 10 days. It's just.
What does Andy say? Tired kids don't cause problems.
Great trip. Those experiential learning trips can't say enough about them.
Any questions or comments?
I appreciated the write-up that you had. I think it was in the committee about that. Yeah, great to have in that kind of that goes out to such a broad spectrum. Everybody's thinking about it.
Thanks.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion for adjournment, regular meeting,
So moved.
have a second.
Second.
Questions or comments?
One question. We talked earlier about, the lunch program that people are paying. Has there been any issues with people? No. And then the second thing was, we had talked about free and reduced, numbers being down so much. Are people filling out paperwork
We've done a
now?
really good job of getting those people. One of the things that really has helped us is the free and reduced lunch rate is directly connected to medical assistance, families receiving medical assistance. So that's helped out quite a bit as well.
Meaning they don't need to fill out paperwork?
If they're on the list of MA, they automatically get free and reduced lunch.
Has that always been the case?
No.
I was gonna say, I don't remember ever talking about that before.
I don't know if they ever put the list together.
It's called direct certification.
Oh,
Yes, that's helped out quite a bit.
that's gotta change, that's a game changer.
Yep.
It's always been that way?
For many, many years. It's called direct certification. If they're in the system already, then you can upload your student files and they will pull them all out and say, yep, here you go, these are directly certified, they don't need to fill paperwork.
How often do they update them? Because that, people go on and off that. Pretty.
I don't know, I'm not sure how often they update it. I can't tell you that for sure.
So do we only pull it once a year?
I think so. And then Benita has to go through and, so for some of those families that are directly certified, she has to do another step and send them more paperwork for them to fill out, just to have that double check. There's like so many people, so many families that she has to do that to. Just to fulfill the needs of the federal government.
Does it go reverse? Do we tell them, oh, you might qualify for medical assistance?
I'm sure that most people that fill that out.
Just curious. Any other questions? Voting for adjournment, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Great.
Turn off YouTube.
Cold.